Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Klaus Shipley, and I will be moderating the discussion today. I'm happy to announce that this is the first joint webinar between Xenit Solutions and Zia Consulting. Both companies became partners earlier this year, so we look forward to more collaborations like this in the future. Before I proceed, I would like to ask all our participants to save their questions until the end of the webinar. And if you have a question that comes up before that, please send it to us via the chat feature. Thank you. The focus of today's webinar is a new approach to managing the Alfresco Digital Platform. As some of you may know, Alfresco Digital Business Platform is a leader in the enterprise content management ecosystem and a strong fit for enterprises seeking a modern, cloud-friendly solution. This is why our discussion will be focused on helping companies to understand how to effectively manage their ECM platform. Before we begin, I would like to highlight the topics we will cover during the next 30 minutes. First, we will introduce our viewers and listeners to our speakers, and I will ask them to introduce their companies. Following that intro, I will provide our audience with some insight into the Alfresco ECM ecosystem. Afterwards, our speakers will discuss how open source technology can help to manage Alfresco. And lastly, we will open the Q&A session to the audience. To kick off our webinar, I'm happy to introduce our two speakers for this event. On the left, we have Ronny Timmermans from Belgium. Ronny has been a part of the ECM world for more than 20 years. He has amassed a lot of experience in document management and has a strong passion for automation and technology. Our next speaker is Ryan McVeigh on the right. And Ryan brings nearly 2 decades of experience in the ECM industry to Zia Solutions. He has a strong focus on excellence in leadership. I will now invite Ronny to give a brief introduction to Zia.
Thank you very much, Klaus. Well, Xenit was founded in 2007 and was founded upon the technology of Alfresco to develop the business, to install, integrate, enrich Alfresco, run it at best possible conditions. We do 3 things. We have project implementations, new installations, integration with other applications. We do cloud hosting for Alfresco, which helps us to develop our own skills in terms of operational excellence to run an Alfresco at best possible conditions. And we deliver Alfresco managed services to our customers, such that they can just sleep at rest. Their Alfresco will be running at best possible availability and with the desired performance. So those are the 3, I would say, main business lines that we develop. We have also our own product suite called Alfred that helps us to fulfill that mission, not just to install and develop Alfresco projects, but to run them at a very high operational excellence standard once installed. We, as I said, we were founded in 2007. We have been doing Alfresco since. We have, of course, acquired a large international customer base, also a local customer base. The international local customer base is mostly with our products. For instance, the city of New York is a customer of Alfred Desktop. We have customers in Switzerland, in Germany, in France with our products. And we have had, let's say, healthy growth in the Alfresco business and the Alfresco ecosystem in the last 12 years of our existence.
Okay, thank you, Ronny, for that concise overview. I would like to now introduce Ryan so that he can talk about Zia Consulting.
Perfect. Thank you, Klaus. So Zia Consulting is a systems integrator and a value-added reseller. We're an entity that is a little over 16 years old. We were founded in 2003, and our headquarters is in Boulder, Colorado. And I would tell you we're largely a US-based entity. We certainly have customers around the world and some limited presence in Europe. What we ultimately do is work on content management projects with and for our customers. That mission, of course, to help our customers bring to market and address their enterprise challenges around content with a strong focus again on Alfresco, of course, and related technologies. The kinds of problems that we end up focusing on with those customers and ultimately with our mutual customers, with our friends from Xenit, is addressing everything from legacy systems, integrating to or migrating away from those, working on things where there may have been challenges in the past with perhaps another provider, another content technology perhaps. I think you can't talk about content and talk about analysts without talking about content chaos. That's a phrase that we use frequently, but it's very real. Of course, organizations really struggle with the breadth and depth of the challenges of their content. That's an area, of course, that we focus in and are experts on. And then once again, governance being a huge play for us. Given that we have an audience here that's both in the States and in Europe, we'll talk about GDPR. In the States, we talk a lot about the California, CCPA, the kind of the U.S. equivalents of that same challenge. Broadly speaking, the areas in which we focus, I would tell you, are end to end. So it is the beginning of that conversation around strategy, around how we help our customers envision a roadmap. Oftentimes, it's a multi-year plan that involves perhaps some of our assistance, a lot of their own ability to become self-sufficient. How do I help them move to a content technology that's actually meeting their needs? It's unusual for us to interact with an entity that doesn't have something, so migration is typically always a part of that conversation. You'll hear me say perhaps more than once in this conversation, integration. We integrate quite a lot. Nearly every implementation we're a part of involves integrating to one or many things that you may or may not have ever heard of before. And then finally, we could use the word customization. I'll often use the word configuration, but that tailoring of a solution to meet the customer's needs, right? You'll see us talk about the concept that Alfresco is platform technology, and that affords us that opportunity to augment perhaps, or even just configure the tool to best meet the business requirements of the customer.
So thank you for that, Ryan, for letting us know how you service your customers around ECM. So this brings us to our next topic, which is basically an overview of the ETL ECM ecosystem with Alfresco. As I mentioned at the top of the webinar, Alfresco's digital business platform is growing in the enterprise content management ecosystem. More importantly, Forrester and Gartner named Alfresco as a leader in document and content management. My first question is then directed to Ryan. In your opinion, what are the major drivers for this recognition, and how has Alfresco evolved in the past 5 years?
Thank you, Klaus. It's interesting. We talk about this being platform technology. Oops, we want to go back a slide. There we are. We talk about this being platform technology. We talk about this being, open, and you can't have a conversation about Alfresco without at least acknowledging that we're talking about, commercially viable open source software. We don't need to spend a lot of time on the fact that it's open source. I think the audience here knows and understands that, but that really affords us as both Zia as well as Xenit and our customers and mutual customers to take advantage of this technology in a way that they may not have otherwise. That general openness, I think, has afforded Alfresco the opportunity to stay ahead of the curve in bringing their technology to market. Perhaps what I think is one of the more interesting development features, if you will, or things that Alfresco has brought to market in the past several years is taking advantage of the cloud native functionality that the major cloud providers are making available. Something as simple, and I'll use that in air quotes, as simple as automatically scaling a deployment requires some careful architecture choices and some careful technology decisions along the way to enable such a thing. And Alfresco has done a very nice job of being among the very first vendors to have their platform take advantage of those capabilities. And it's not only in one of the cloud providers, but in multiple of the cloud providers. So they've done a really nice job of that. I think that's a key reason for that recognition by our friends at the analyst community.
Great. So Ryan, along those same lines, Zia has helped many companies create next-generation content management solutions that leverage Alfresco. Based on your experience, what are the common needs and challenges that Alfresco resolves?
Another good question, of course. As I thought about how we might have this conversation today, Klaus, I thought about, well, what does it mean to be a platform technology in content management? And, we talked a little bit about the fact that this is platform. I think if you were to look at the competitors in the space, every single one of them could make a case and say, yes, we have some of the very core things. And, we can store our content and retrieve that again later, right? What content repositories are ultimately meant to do. What Alfresco has done perhaps better than the competition is enable that from the business and the IT user more effectively. On the IT side, which is where I'll spend my time answering the question, we talk about the openness and the platform notion of the technology and making that easy to do. Fresco is one of the first participants on standards body efforts by way of example. So we'll just go back to the fact that it is a platform. If I look at it through the lens of the eyes of the consultants at Zia, I would tell you that, and I mentioned this earlier, right? Integration is a key part of what we do. It would be extremely unusual to have a conversation with an entity about a content system that did not include integrating into technologies we're all familiar with and we know and love, to technologies that nobody's ever heard of before, whether they're proprietary or just one-off solutions. And this is the kind of things that we do every day. The fact that Alfresco enables that so easily for us has been very appealing, not only in growing our own business, but also certainly something that our customers have been found very appealing and perhaps necessary in selecting their technologies as well.
Okay, excellent, thank you. So Ryan, you mentioned that Alfresco is not only software, but a platform. This means that it must be managed. Can you then explain what does it mean and what could be the impact of that on the customers?
Sure, certainly. The management of an application is a complicated, or can be a complicated thing. We're talking about multiple moving components working in concert with one another seamlessly, and ensuring that business is in fact running properly for the customer. So we could talk about the kind of the core basics of how you might say manage CPU utilization, things along those lines. I would say that that's table stakes. Everybody needs to be able to solve that problem. Alfresco's done a nice job. Again, we'll go back to cloud native, right? Look at how you might deploy the software in a cloud provider and hook into the monitoring capabilities of those entities. And they've done a nice job of bringing that to market. Again, I would begin to tell you this is one of the things that attracted us to partnering with you all at Xenit, of course, is you bring kind of a next level, next layer of that capability to the potential customer as well. And so I would say that, again, that's a strength, if you will, in Alfresco, right? You've enabled, or the technology rather has enabled these use cases that weren't necessarily present in the market before Alfresco came to be, and Alfresco's remained a step ahead, perhaps, of their competition in enabling those use cases along the way.
Thank you for that, Ryan. Now, Ryan, as you said, managing an application such as Alfresco can be complicated. So the question then begs to be asked, is it easier to manage Alfresco with open source technology? And I think this is where we can now bring the question to Mr. Ronny Timmermans from Xenit. How will Alfred, in your estimate, help customers in managing their Alfresco?
Thank you for that question, Klaus, because indeed it's the mission of Alfred. Alfred is a service and a servant, a collection of software tools, best practices, a reference architecture to help customers achieve a number of very important goals. Goals not in developing or integrating Alfresco, but to run it at optimal conditions. First of all, the availability. I think today 99.5% availability is standard. 99.9% is the new norm. And we have customers that are asking today for zero downtime. So you need tools and an architecture to achieve that. Secondly, we want to make a promise to the customer with Alfred software around Alfresco that 95% of all queries are always answered within 3 seconds. That requires a lot of know-how, technology, and engineering to get that going. Alfred is the bundle that aims to achieve that. We want to create clarity in our interfaces. That's the third target. We want to ensure security. We want to bring governance. And we want to bring the absolute assurance that your data are safe and will always be safe over the years that you manage documents with Alfresco. So we have those 6 base values, and that will Alfred bring to the customer in an operational way. So it's all about quality of service, and it's all about operational excellence.
Great, thank you. Now, you mentioned that some customers are asking for zero downtime. Ryan, what values do you see in Alfred as a tool to manage Alfresco?
You know, I want to pause a second as I answer this question and just maybe say one other thing here that it became evident to us as I got to know Ronnie, you and your team, that our two companies have a great deal of technical depth of experience around successful Alfresco deployments. And we can talk about the product features and functions all day until we're until we're tired of having that conversation, perhaps. But what I think our audience deserves to understand is at our very core, right? I can go back and look at everybody from my chief architect here at Zia to individual consultants who have had a chance to work with you and your team at a technical level. We've run across each other at conferences and so on through the years. There's a great deal of mutual respect, and we have a great deal of common technical background, and I'll even go so far as to say DNA in that regard. So, when I look at utilization of Alfred as a tool, we talk about, the things that are necessary to manage an enterprise running production deployment of Alfresco. It's immediately obvious and comforting to me that Alfred brings that capability to the customer in a way that I might had I chosen at Zia to do a similar thing. And so I think that's a more interesting conversation, frankly, than a feature function conversation. That you utilize the open source nature and the platform nature of the technology with deep technical experience and real world running customers to vet out a solution that helps our customers do that every day.
Thank you, Ryan. Ronnie, this next question is directed to you. Xenit announced that Alfred will be open source soon. What will be the value for customers, partners, and for the entire Alfresco community?
Maybe a little correction on that. It was already open sourced, as your slide says. So it's open source now. We open sourced it in the summer. Let me have 2 minutes before I jump into your question. I want to come back to what Ryan said. I can only confirm that respect is mutual. And it's not just to declare our mutual respect and affinity, I think, between the partners that we're working together. But it is also because if we want to set ourselves ambitious goals and hard targets, imagine that Alfresco falls down at a customer. I want to be sure that within 15 minutes, 30 minutes, in any case and always and everywhere, it's back up and running again. And that requires a lot of know-how and expertise. And if Xenit and Zia work together in such circumstances, those are critical points in time for the customer experience on Alfresco. Even though we have 18 engineers specializing in Alfresco, I think that it's never enough. You have to scale the expertise, and that's why we work together with such a respected partner as Zia. The numerous awards Zia had on its technical excellence and its capabilities around Alfresco That's why we have a common, I think, promise to the Alfresco community to achieve those goals, even quantifiable objectives. And that's where software like Alfred comes in. So now I make the link to myself and your question here, why was it open sourced? It is exactly because you want to combine those expertise and best practices and that kind of know-how, that you are also open and transparent on the tools. And it's very logical. It's logical for a first reason that it is part of an ecosystem in Alfresco. And we were all fans of Alfresco, and we still are, because it's an open source solution. Your creativity can be added to Alfresco. That's why we create the Alfred toolset as well in open source. It's compliant with the ecosystem. Secondly, it creates the possibility for not just Zia and Xenit that know a lot about Alfresco, but there are other partners and there are customers with a lot of know-how which would even as well contribute to the tools. So we help Alfresco to extend the tools towards operational excellence and not just the feature set, but that operational excellence. And that's the mission in life of Alfred. The third reason why you open source it is because we want to avoid a vendor lock-in. There should not be a feeling with customers that if they would use software from a company of Xenit or Zia, is that they're locked in with those companies. So it's open source, you can see what's in, other people can develop it, other people can do more things with it, but it's open, it's free, and that's the real important reason why it was open sourced. So compliant with the Alfresco approach and philosophy, allows to share, have a synergetic effect between companies like Zia and ourselves, and thirdly, no vendor lock-in.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that, Ronny. It's good to hear honest feedback about why you open sourced Alfred. So since this is the first time both of you are appearing on a webinar together, it would be remiss of me not to ask you about your partnership. So Ronny, the first question is for you. How do you see a partnership with Zia working since both companies are in different continents? You being in Europe and Zia being in the United States.
Yes, well, actually that's one of the points why it's so interesting to partner with Zia. There is a synergetic effect, there is synergy between us, and there is also complementary effect between us. Together we cover 2/3 of the world, and more we are moving up in the Alfresco customer base to deliver those 24/7 experiences all over the globe. Some customers of ours are active worldwide. You want to be able to serve them. And that means that if we work together with Zia, and we have to help a customer in the middle of the night, European time frame, that can be perfectly covered by engineers at Zia. Vice versa, of course, if it is very early in the US, we can help from Europe. It does not help only to cover more time zones, it also helps to exchange that kind of know-how and knowledge, so we're just stronger together in terms of solving those problems whenever they arise at whatever point in time. So you cover time zones, you also cover maybe different approaches and philosophies, because the US probably has specific culture as well in terms of how they handle Alfresco. They learn about those aspects. We learn more about some European aspects. We talked about GDPR, which is a European initiative, but it will have a counter site in the US. So we can even help each other on that sense. Now, a word on the synergy. We are very alike culturally. We have a high respect for engineering, for technical know-how. Both companies have grown their reputation upon that. So we agree a lot on that. We share those values and we share that kind of know-how. So that also means that Zia and Xenit are excellently, I think, predispositioned to partner and to combine and to create synergy in operational excellence around Alfresco.
Thank you. Ryan, Ronnie touched briefly on the synergy and the common values that both companies have. For you, though, how do you think some of your customers could benefit from this collaboration?
Certainly, I want to say the same things, and we've been taking each other's, answers together. That's part of why we get along so well. And so I'll just repeat it. The common DNA is there. That's evident. The common passion for success is evident. We really understand at a detailed level how to be successful with Alfresco. And I'm not suggesting that that's a very, very tough thing to do, but it is enterprise software. We are talking about a platform technology that's meant to be configured, customized, tailored, et cetera, in an enterprise fashion for customers. So, that's no small feat. Our companies have both done that many, many times independently, and it became obvious that not only from a product standpoint, but from a cultural standpoint or a soul standpoint, that we share in that passion and will benefit from coming together. So the resale of Alfred to our customers, both that we work with already and hope to work with in the future, is an obvious one. Similarly, we believe we can mutually support each other, as Ronnie was mentioning. So we cover together in essence two-thirds or more of the globe, and our respective teams can get up a little earlier or stay up a little late appropriately to cover the entire world, as is right now. And we'll continue to grow both of our businesses as well. So you can imagine in the future a scenario where perhaps in a managed deployment, a managed service, as we were talking about with the cloud providers, that we collaborate in the support of a customer and ensure that they get a common experience and as appropriate in a true production outage. We're ensuring that they're successful and back up and running in as little time as is possible. We could talk further about features and functions once again, but I would simply say that there's a great opportunity together, and our common thinking will bring us together in front of many customers, immediately, but also in the near and far future. So we're excited about it.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. I want to thank you for ending on such a positive note about the partnership, and I think this partnership will lead to many great outcomes in the future. So this was a fantastic closing answer to our webinar, and I would like to thank both of our participants for their assistance and open dialogue. To end, I would like to quickly recap some of the things we learned today. We learned that Alfresco's digital business platform is growing in the enterprise content management ecosystem, and Zia and Xenit are teaming up to provide solutions and services around the platform. Zia is counting on their long history and experience with Alfresco, while Xenit is focused on providing the underlying technology to make Alfresco more performant with their open source technology. This now brings us to the end of the presentation, and I would like to open the floor to questions from the audience. Feel free to also send your messages via the chat room.
May I ask something to Ryan? This is Daniela. Hi, Ryan. The question that I have for you is, if you have to basically describe the ideal customer for Alfred as a solution to help the customer to manage Alfresco, how is basically look like?
Certainly. A flippant answer would be every customer, right? Anyone who cares to manage their running Alfresco enterprise, whether that's an on-premise or an in the cloud or otherwise. And I wouldn't be wrong when saying that. I know that that's true. Perhaps we could look at this from an order of magnitude or a complexity standpoint. These solutions at the end of the day can be complicated, can be complex. And so, mentioned earlier, when we have multiple integrations, we have, perhaps a hybrid deployment, some other extenuating circumstance. Those are good reasons why Alfred will help a customer be successful. You could also look at, how much resource and staff availability do you have as a customer? Are you steeped in systems administrators and they've got a little bit of time on their hands? Perhaps they're a little less interesting, and those entities that are trying to do more with less, as it were, which is perhaps a common thing in business today that everyone is seeing, is perhaps a better target where a technology like Alfred affords that customer the opportunity to manage their running infrastructure in the most expeditious way possible. Broad answer there, Danielle. I appreciate the question, but I would tell you honestly that I've yet to really encounter a customer that wouldn't in some fashion benefit from utilizing Alfred.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I would like to thank everyone for joining today's event, and feel free to reach out to us if you would like to carry on this conversation. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Klaus. Goodbye. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you very much.